The most intimidating and also the most important job interview question is always the same. That is, what is your greatest strength? These strength-based questions give hiring managers everything they need to make the decision on who to hire. So I'm going to provide you with example interview answers and formulas you need to provide the best interview answer to this question so you can make sure that you get hired. And if you want any interview tips on answering what is your biggest weakness, I have created an entire video on that. I link to it down in the description below, and if I can figure out how to do it, I'm also going to link to it in the top corner here. So the biggest mistake that people make when they're answering what is your greatest strength is simply stating what they feel is their greatest professional strength. It sounds like what you should be doing, but it can actually be really damaging. What we need to do when we're answering this question is give them our greatest strength related to the characteristics that they, the hiring manager, care about the most. To do this, open up ChatGPT, paste in the job posting that you're interviewing for, and then add this prompt. If you are the hiring manager for the job posting I've listed below, what would you identify as the 7 to 10 most important skills to do this job well? This part's important. Please provide a mix of hard skills, technical skills, and interpersonal skills. Now, ChatGPT is going to provide you with a list of options. And what I want you to do with those options is pick your top hard skill, your top technical skill, and your top interpersonal skill. We want to have one of each ready to go, and I'll explain why soon. Now that we have our topic or our strengths narrowed down to a top 3, hitting on 3 different skill sets, and we know that the hiring manager is going to care about what we chose to talk about because we got our ideas from the job posting, we are ready to start formulating our answer. In formulating our answer, the biggest mistake that a lot of people make is just stating what these strengths are and not backing it up with a real life story, an example of a time we used that strength successfully. So for each of our 3 strengths that we want to talk about, we are going to prepare a story, and we're going to use the STAR method, which is a standard storytelling tool that we use during job interviews just to help our stories become a little more memorable and make sure we're showing all the things the hiring manager wants to see. STAR method is an acronym that stands for Situation, Task, Action, Result. Now I've created a full video on the STAR method, which again I hopefully have linked up above, but if not, it's down in the description. And you can check out that entire video to see exactly how to build a STAR method answer for all the questions. But for now, I'll give you a quick example of how it applies here in What is Your Greatest Strength. So here we have a little rundown or an example of what we can write out in terms of notes for our STAR method answers. So for the situation, we're just describing what job we were in when we were doing the story that we're going to tell them. For task, we'll describe what was the problem we were trying to solve, the opportunity we were trying to overcome, the assignment that we had. For actions, we're going to take them through step by step, everything we did when we were in this situation working on this task. And finally, the result is, of course, how it ended. And ideally, we can show that when we did this thing, it went well. And if you don't have a nice result for the story that you are planning on telling to show off this strength, you need to pick a different strength, because to prove you're good at this thing, it's a strength of yours, we need to be able to show results. So your assignment here is to do this process for the 3 top strengths that we identified earlier. And for more guidance on building out STAR method answers for literally all of the questions that you are going to be answering during job interviews, check out my free guide down below. It's called How to Prepare for Job Interviews. And I've also linked up in the top corner there a video I created about the STAR method completely all into itself. But Greg, you keep telling us to have 3 answers ready. They're only asking us for 1. Where does that come into play? Well, I'm so very glad you asked. So an important thing to know is that the best interviews feel more like conversations than they do a formally super structured question, answer, repeat. So this means that in this situation, it is okay for us to hear a question and ask them a question back about that question so that we know how to answer it in the way that they need us to answer it. So in this instance, we could tell them that we have a couple of different answers in mind for this question, and I'll show you what that looks like in just a second. And that way we get some feedback from them so we know we're giving them the most valuable information. This is also a great way to just show them what it's like to work with you. You're going to be inquisitive. You're going to have some questions. It's also a great way to show confidence, which again makes people a lot more comfortable in talking to us and picturing themselves working with us. So all around, one of the best things you can do when this question comes up is ask a follow-up question to help them help you decide which answer to give. And that sounds a little bit confusing, so I'm just gonna dive right into our sample answers so you can see exactly what that looks like. Oh, Greg, I love your outfit and your hair is looking fantastic. People should definitely like this video and subscribe to your channel. But by the way, can you please tell me, what is your greatest strength? Oh, why thank you. And yes, I agree, everyone should subscribe to the channel. And to answer your question, I've actually been thinking about this question quite a bit in preparing for this interview, and I've got 3 options in mind as to how I want to answer it. Would you mind if I walked you through what I was thinking just so I can make sure that my answer is most relevant to you? Of course, I would like that very much. So in terms of my technical skills, I'm very strong using SQL to analyze big data sets and help come up with the best pathway forward to help make a big critical decision. In terms of my interpersonal skills, I am very, very comfortable using data to build compelling stories to generate buy-in for important changes we're trying to make. And in terms of process improvement, I think I have a really, really strong capability to understand how we can move forward and make substantial changes that have huge business impacts based on the data that I'm looking for. Would any of those be relevant that you'd like to hear more about? I would love to hear an example of your process improvement skills. Great. So when I was a data analyst at McDonald's, I was tasked with doing a review of 10,000 locations to identify how we could improve our drive-through processing speed. I took a huge data set from across those 10,000 locations. I did a very in-depth SQL analysis, and I was able to identify quite a few bottlenecks, particularly in the production process. We were having issues around wrapping the burgers and also salting the fries. Having identified those as key bottlenecks, I then did some outreach to a lot of involved stakeholders, including quite a few folks who were on the front line actually wrapping the burgers and salting the fries. And in getting feedback from those individuals, I was able to sort of craft process improvements for those bottlenecks that worked for the people who were doing them because they were designed by those folks. And in doing so, we sort of refined the process. I was a critical part of rolling that process out across the 10,000 locations. And as a result of that, we were able to decrease drive-through processing time by 15% across all 10,000 locations. So that is an example of a time that I drove a major process improvement using my data analysis skills, and I feel like that is one of my greatest strengths. Amazing answer! You are hired! And if you want to get hired, check out my free resume writing course here on YouTube. It's got everything you need to create the perfect resume.